history of children being jailed. Now to Tennessee, and a report that uncovers one county's staggering history of children being jailed. An investigative report by Nashville Public Radio and ProPublica lays out a case from 2016 when 4 young black girls were arrested at school accused of not stopping a fistfight between 2 small boys. But police were not there to arrest the 2 boys seen fighting in the video. Instead, they were there to arrest 4 black girls they believe were seen in a YouTube video yelling at the 2 boys, when the girls only 8 years old. Police went on to arrest 11 black children in all. All 11 of their families sued in federal court. All 11 won their cases and received settlements. But according to that ProPublica report, what happened in 2016 was not an exception in the county. It was the norm. Kids for years jailed illegally by a judge in Rutherford County. A judge who says kids must face consequences. Data reveals how pernicious this problem is. ProPublica reports out of all cases referred to juvenile courts in Tennessee, only 5% of cases led to a child being detained. In Rutherford County, that number is 48%. With me now, Maribel.
Did you hear what she said? In Rutherford County, 48%. That right there tells me that something is entirely wrong with the judicial system. I don't know if they're underfunded. I don't know if they don't have proper resources pertaining to counselors. But by jailing children up like they're adults, I just, Tennessee in a lot of ways is really, really good. But Tennessee in a lot of ways is really, really bad. And this is one of them whenever it comes to the officials taking care of their children in a proper form. Kind of like workman's comp. You get injured severely in the state of Tennessee, they got caps, which I guess all of them's got some sort of a ceiling or a cap. But the state of Tennessee, whenever I fell off a 4-story building in 1979, wasn't but about $46,000 or $48,000. If you was paralyzed from your neck down, was all workman's comp was going to pay you. If you was tied to a wheelchair the rest of your life, to where if that same injury, that same accident would have happened in the state of Illinois, I'd have probably wound up with at least $1 million, if not $1.5 million, $2 million settlement. So Tennessee's got messed up workman's comp laws. Tennessee obviously has got messed up children reform laws. And Tennessee is backwoods pertaining to wanting to allow for various people in this particular county. I don't know about all the other ones, but this particular county has set back and allowed for basically an uproar, an uprising from the neighborhood that the various judges and prosecuting attorneys and DA's offices wasn't willing to do nothing about. And the whole time, it was them coming to 291 Thompson Road. Whenever you have backwoods thinking, whenever you have backwoods traditions, backwoods traits that goes back, I guess, to the early part of the 1900s, probably long about World War I or before. Whenever you have this type of concept in various law enforcement agencies here in the state of Tennessee towards being so prejudiced and so biased. I mean, as far as I know, there's never been a black judge in the state, in the county of Weakley County. As far as I know, there's never been a black mayor that run the county mayor. There's never been in other major cities or towns around here. The blacks have been pushed off to the side. So you can't tell me that the proof isn't in the pudding, because it is, pertaining to how that they have been prejudiced and biased and trying to hang on to their old ways. There's no doubt that children need to be disciplined. There's no doubt that children need to be held accountable for their actions. But there's a proper way of doing it, and there's an improper way of doing it. And I guess what we're fixing to hear here, what we're fixing to listen to here, is what has been going on now for quite some time in Rutherford County, Tennessee. Please listen.
She's a senior reporter with Nashville Public Radio and contributed to ProPublica's report. Merva, thanks so much for being with us. Break down for us what is going on in this county and how they were getting away with jailing kids.
Yeah, so like you said, these arrests took place in Rutherford County, which, as our story outlines, had been illegally arresting and jailing kids for years, all under the watch of its juvenile court judge, Donna Scott Davenport. She had directed law enforcement on her process for arresting children. Basically, arrest children, transport them to the detention center for screening, then file charging papers. In other words, every child arrested, even for minor things like truancy, were being taken to the juvenile detention center, the judge told law enforcement.
Which is creating a record. Now you got a record over something stupid, over something ignorant. You know, children are going to be children. And it's not against the law to be stupid. It really isn't. You may wish that it was, but children are going to be children.
The other part of this is Davenport also appointed the county's head jailer, Lynn Duke, who has been in power almost as long as the judge Davenport, since 2000. And she had her own screening process for children called the filter system that was pulling in really large numbers of children into the detention center in violation of the law. I can get into more details. The story gets into lots of details. It's complicated, but in essence, it was these two things in tandem that were causing so many kids to be locked up.
Well, and in addition, one of the details I want to get into, that the kids arrested over the fight that was on a YouTube video were charged of, quote, criminal responsibility for conduct of another. That's a charge that doesn't exist in Tennessee law. All 11 of the kids arrested for being jailed under a filter system. How does something like this happen in the first place? Talk to me about that charge and sort of, as you described the system and the various failings of the system, where then the oversight should have been.
Yeah, so the charge of criminal responsibility, like you said, is not an actual charge. It's a prosecutorial theory. In essence, someone can be charged with assault who was present during an assault, but they can't be charged with criminal responsibility. It's just not an actual charge. So that's kind of the first part of it.
Charged me with falsifying files. First time I'd heard anything about that. That the way that they laid it out, it was somebody that was crying fire, fire in the middle of a theater that started a random panic and a bunch of people got hurt, injured, or come to their death. Thing about it is, whenever they charged me for the charge, I wasn't in no theater, number one. Number two, I didn't cry out fire. Number three, I didn't pull no fire hydrant down like a school emergency fire thing down. So what these people do and how they do it is really, it's illegal in what they're doing. It's backwoods. Just like the people up there in Kentucky over 2 telephone calls that was non-threatening. Spanned out between a 90-day period. Almost 90 days. It's sad how the rich dominate the working class and the poor class in some of your southern states, to the point that the people really don't have power over what goes on. It's a heartbreak. These vigilante type tactics, just like whenever I was in Humphreys County and I went into a store and apparently I must have said the wrong thing or something. I don't know. This was a doomsday center that sold doomsday stuff. And I basically told the individual about my story. And the next thing you know, I've got cops out here in my yard wanting to know if I could make it to a certain appointment to go see a psychiatric doctor. Crazy. Crazy stuff towards attacking their citizens, either in Tennessee or Kentucky. And I'm sure it's that way probably in a lot of your southern states. And I'm really, in a way, and I hate to say this because I kind of mean it metaphorically, but in a way, what's going on right now with the system being overloaded and being broke and being out all these problems and all these headaches that's going on pertaining to their jail industries and their judicial system, they really brought it upon to themselves. It couldn't have happened to a better group of people the way that they was blackballing their citizens, or blackballing their visitors that was citizens of the United States. It's really sad.
Is that there were people involved in this deciding the charges that did not have legal training, and they were not lawyers. So accidents like that can happen. In our story, what we did uncover was that, yes, there were systems of oversight that were not working. In other words, the head jailer, she reports every month to the county commissioners who didn't ask questions about policy. They often likened the jail to a business, sometimes joking that it was like a hotel. The Tennessee Department of Children's Services licenses juvenile jails, and it inspected Rutherford County's jail every year, and not once did it flag this illegal filter system. They really just remarked on the cleanliness of the facility or if it had graffiti or not. So there was multiple layers from county and state that were ineffective at catching this illegal system.
Well, my head is exploding. My head exploded as I read this. And I think there's a reason that your story is gaining so much traction online, because yes, it is about this specific county and this specific system being broken, but you can broaden that out to talk about a criminal justice system.
Old school thinking. Old school thinking. Hadn't never come out of the woodwork. Still treating people like they're slaves.
That over and over again penalizes communities of color. And when you boil it down to children.
Bringing up false charges on people. Trying to make people out to be homegrown terrorists. And the whole time, these are some of the most patriotic people in the country that love their country. Would be willing to die for their country. I've never seen the system so broken, especially whenever it goes to attacking the innocent, which a great deal of the children are going to be in that same limelight towards being innocent. And I realize some of them do things that they should be reprimanded on, but there's a proper way to reprimand them. They're not grown-ups. Whenever I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I was getting the hell knocked out of me like I was a grown man because I was being abused. Well, apparently around here in this area, the majority of the people that's my age or older, they think that that was the acceptable way of treating 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old children. Because apparently they must have got treated that way themselves. You know, you have to break that addiction. You have to break the chain of stupidity somewhere, especially whenever it comes to people's lives that are basically being destroyed and turned totally upside down. Like I said, every time they do something like this, all it does is just create a record, and now you're piggybacking off on somebody's life that because they was juveniles and they made a mistake, now you're going to punish them for the rest of their lives because of it. I'm going to tell you, it's cruel. It's very, very cruel in how various things that goes on with the law enforcement agencies in this state, and Kentucky too. I can't tell you about Colorado other than Colorado was fair to me. I can't tell you about the state of California because the state of California was very fair to me. I did have some problems out in Arizona pertaining to law enforcement after they got a whiff of my record being out in Oklahoma, and they tried to make a big deal out of that. I did have problems, no doubt, in Atlanta pertaining to how that they was bird dogging me down there because they knowed about my record. Same thing up here in Tennessee. They're on this mission, okay? And the mission that they're on, it's not to reform their citizens, it's to destroy their citizens. I've never seen nothing like it in my entire life. The country of America has more incarcerated people in jail or on paper that has been in jail that is feeding the system. And that's what they're doing. They're setting up entrapments. They're bringing up false stuff. They're not being professional about how they're doing things. They're backwoods. They're still in they're still in the 20th century. I don't know what it's going to take. I guess it's going to take the complete total collapse of this country falling on its face. And basically another civil war that we come real close to just within a matter of days towards that happening, towards a total constitutional collapse if the government shuts down and they can't pay their bills. I guess that's what it's going to take. Either that or a meteor coming out of the sky or a major earthquake or Yellowstone National Park blowing up. I don't know. But something's going to have to be done about this crooked system, especially in the South, to where people are treated unjustly.
Communities of color, that distinction becomes even clearer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like all 11 children in this incident were Black, and they were caught up in this, and they weren't even perpetrators of this fight. They were just there. It wasn't even on school grounds, yet they were many of them were taken at school. So this is another instance of an unfair system sucking in, vulnerable kids, too often children of color. It really seems to be a definition of a school to prison pipeline.
Merva, I am so grateful to you for your reporting and for your sharing it with us. Thank you so much for your time. More American Voices.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. More American Voices after this quick break.
Other site, it's really as simple as taking that old power nap. And wait.
He's even met his...
You know, these fat cats, I've sat and watched them start out in their careers as being attorneys, and they've moved up from attorneys to judges. One particular case here that I remember quite well because they handled our affairs was Max Spates and Bradbury. Mr. Bradbury was a blind guy, and after they do their footwork for a certain length of time towards being attorneys, that's whenever they kick them up the ladder towards being something else. But after they get their license, I guess they don't never have to go back and reflect upon different laws that has changed and different laws that's been reformed. And the test that they took 25, 30 years ago was based around 25, 30 years ago. It wasn't based upon the laws of today. And what they could do 25 years ago versus today is totally different. Some areas they're more aggressive in. Other areas they're not aggressive enough in. Like whenever I was riding around with my stereo being real high, I got a ticket for unnecessary noise in Martin, Tennessee. Today, I don't guess they'd even attempt to give anybody a ticket for unnecessary noise pertaining to their stereo being too loud. I don't care if it was so loud that you could hear it from one side of the parking lot in Walmart to the other. They just have changed their priorities, and they're not worried about people with loud loud noises such as loud pipes and loud music. I'm just using that for an illustration of how times has changed, but the system doesn't evolve with the times.
He's president.
It's sad.
Trash that's coming in. Got this dirt. Start that cup.
Disgusting. Not with today's left. Here's a bunch of leftist losers harassing Senator Kyrsten Sinema in a public bathroom over her opposition to the Democrats' grotesque porculus bill. And here's Biden without a shred of human decency, not even defending her.
I don't think they're appropriate tactics, but it happens to everybody. From the only people it doesn't happen to are people who have Secret Service standing around them. It's part of the process.
By the way, I have personal experience with this. My wife and I were harassed by some leftist lovelies while exiting the White House when Trump was accepting the nomination. Take a look at this.
Y'all better follow these motherfuckers. You better follow these. This one, he wants to go, but he can't. He's not angry inside. But he has some shit down. One like that. You got your right? You got your I don't care.
That's just who the left is, folks. And by the way, what the hell is George Soros interested in Austin, Texas for? See the story at Fox? He's pouring money into a campaign to impose reinstating police units? You know, he's also seemingly interested in a bunch of district attorney races groups associated with him funded as well. Conveniently, a lot of these district attorneys don't seem to support law enforcement. It's almost if they want street chaos. Did I miss something? Am I wrong? And the last story, Dave Chappelle giving it right back to cancel culture over his Netflix comedy special. They're trying to cancel him because of, you know, comedy and stuff. And he said, hey, if this is what being canceled is like, I love it. He dropped a whole bunch of F-bombs in there after that saying, you know what, I'm not talking to these people, I'm talking to you. This is real life. That's how it's done, folks. The cancelers have an illusion of consensus. It's not there. Hey, before you go, remember you can stream the Dan Bongino Show on Fox Nation weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. But that does it for us here tonight on Unfiltered. We'll see you back here next Saturday at 10.
Unfiltered.
Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Liberals
about equity in healthcare, all of those big American issues, they impact the Latino community in unique ways, and the way in which they've been able to focus on that, super interesting, Eamon.
Yeah, I can't wait for it.
Tomorrow, things very similar for tomorrow. We're talking temperatures in the upper 80s and the low 90s, but the only difference is seeing more sunshine rather than clouds throughout most of the morning and the afternoon. Kicking off tomorrow morning with a mixture of clear skies and clouds, the clouds not lasting long, returning to some sunshine throughout the morning and the afternoon. Above average temperatures are back once again. Today, we saw temps in the mid to upper 80s, a lot of us. We're close to the low 90s. Look at that. Paducah saw temperatures 1 degree shy of 90 degrees. 89 was our high for today. Looking at our temperatures now, slowly cooling down, seeing temps in the low to mid 70s. This is what we should be for this time of year as our highs, but the fact that this is our temperature at 10 o'clock in the evening, that means more warmer temperatures are on the way. So coming up, we'll talk more about this extreme heat and also track the next best chance for some rain.
New tonight, passengers on an American Airlines commuter flight traveling from Indianapolis to LaGuardia are forced to get off the plane on the tarmac, and it was caused by a security threat while the plane was getting ready to land.
Unruly.
You're on your way to eggs and bacon, so wait.
People don't know how to act.
The sooner you wake, the sooner you'll get.
In the video, you see a person on the ground. Now,
Robinson again when he's pounding him. It's Brian Robinson again.
Ain't nothing on that.
Save money.
Try this one
but
more
this
time.
coverage is not automatic. You need to make some.
this year, how a mad president tried to overthrow the results of the election and the will of the American people. Now, it is a plot that might have succeeded if not for the courage and steadfastness of a handful of people in the Justice Department. don't take my word for it. A 394-page report released Thursday by the Senate Judiciary Committee details former President Trump's pressure campaign on top DOJ officials at a January 3rd meeting. Now, at that meeting were former President Trump, his White House counsel Pat Cipollone, and top leaders of the Justice Department, including acting Attorney General at the time, Jeffrey Rosen. Now, Trump and Rosen were on the outs, though. The former president wanted to replace Rosen with Jeffrey Clark, who at that point was the acting head of the Justice Department's Civil Division. All the characters there on your screen. Now, according to the report, Trump opened the meeting
for goods in transit without the customs authority.
Yeah, but it's not 100 feet, it's not 60 feet, unless going down.
Morning, everybody.
Hey, Paul. How'd the old gal run?
Came right up the hill.
All right.
Like she always does.
Except when it doesn't.
Except when it doesn't.
We were just talking.
Privacy is part of the process. Joe Biden green-lighted more attacks, and that's what followed. Sinema was confronted on a plane back to D.C. by an illegal immigrant.
I just want to know if you can commit, as my senator, if you can commit to passing.
See, that's what we're going to run into, I'm going to say, probably for the next 5 years anyway, pertaining to total chaos with so many people having all these documentation devices to be able to record various incidences that happen. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be recorded, because a lot of them probably should. But at the same time, it's a lot of nitpicking going on right now pertaining to people just getting a little unruly or a little loud or this or that. And they magnify it. They turn it into something. They take a little molehill and turn it into a mountain a lot of times because it was captured on live video. We're just living in very, very uncertain times right now pertaining to all the chaos. And artificial intelligence, as far as I'm concerned, has had a big, big influence in the atmosphere that we're all having to be a part of right now. That's the reason why I question about all this high-tech stuff, that instead of it being a gift from God, it may actually be a curse from Satan by bringing all this chaos and allowing for all this sin to be right there in basically the hands of teenagers, in the hands of everybody. So, you know, the Trojan horse that we thought that was God's gift to God's green earth is now turning out to be nothing more than total chaos. Good luck to all of us. Sorry I couldn't get more on the program pertaining to the Tennessee child, Rutherford County, acting up and doing what they're doing. But I'm, you know, because of the circumstances that I presently went through, I don't doubt it one bit that in other areas they're either just as dark, if not darker, than how they run the show here in Northwest Tennessee. So there you go. It's always about the 1%ers wanting to dominate the 99%ers. Those that's went up the chain, now they're making $80, $90, $125, $150,000 a year right here in county seats. Now, they won't show that on paper, but between all the payoffs and the rip-offs and company bonuses and the perks that goes along with it, yeah. And they're gonna fight for their jobs to the very end, even though they're wrong about what they're doing to the citizens. Good luck to all of us, and shalom.